All right, I just want to start by saying I'm glad to see Ned distancing himself so that we don't have any problems there.
I got it back too. Thanks.
First item on the agenda, which I believe has changed a little bit, is Colt Highway LLC, 299 Colt Highway.
Correct, and I believe we've got Ben Tripp and Tom Daly on the phone. So Ben, I've got the site plan up. I think I've got your architectural drawings. I did not include an aerial, but I think the site plan's probably going to get you where you need, and you're welcome to get started on your presentation.
Okay, great. Tom, I think Tom Daly's going to take it from here.
Yes, thank you, Ben. For the record, it's Tom Daly with Milo and McBroom. As Shannon has shown on your screen, you should be able to see our site plan. And this is orientated where generally north is on the pointing left on the plan. Directly to the top of the plan is off the map is the hotel. And directly to the right of the plan is Colt Highway. The wetlands that are subject to this evening's application are located at the bottom of the map, which is located, that would be the west side of the property. That's a very large wetland corridor that kind of wraps around both the west and the north of the site and ultimately drains underneath Colt Highway and heads to the south. As Shannon indicated that we went through some pretty detailed application process in 2012 where we received approval, the project was built, and it's been very successful since then. The application before you this evening is to essentially replace or add 4 4-bay enclosed garages. And these garages are an amenity to the residents. Many of the residents are asking for these garage spaces, and actually this is a trend that we are seeing on many projects. If you do recall, the buildings also have a garage in them, but not everybody has their own garage. There's a request for some additional detached garages. So on the hotel side of the project, which is the map, we have 3 of the 4 unit buildings. Those buildings are not located within your upland review area. I measured the closest distance from the closest garage to the closest wetland edge was about 380 feet. These garages are partially located on pavement and lawn. And one of that is the garage door, the garage spaces, the garages have to be set back a little bit, because if you think about how you pull out of your garage and you want to have some visibility, so they're staggered back a little bit. And each garage, they vary, but one garage takes up about 480 square feet of lawn area. The greatest garage takes up about 710 square feet. So in a project that had about 4.4 acres of impervious, it's pretty negligible change of impervious area. But the garage that's probably of most interest to this commission is the one on plan lower left, where Shannon has the mouse. That is, once again, it's a 4-car, 4-bay garage. And it is located in an area that there's a lawn, shelf, and parking directly adjacent to the stormwater basin and the wetlands. And on this particular map, you can see the wetland line is that line with those little triangles along there. That's, yep, right where Shannon's doing it. But just to the north of that is a stormwater basin. That was a basin that was designed as part of this application. I believe it was Ed Pollock that worked with us to develop a fairly detailed planting plan for that. And that is basically the primary stormwater basin for the overall project. All the water is directed to there, except there were some areas where we did direct some clean roof water directly to the wetlands. And that garage is located approximately 100 feet to the closest wetland. And also I measure it's about 35 feet to the bottom, so that bottom contour of the detention basin, to give you some distances. We are going to surround each one of these garages with some silt fence, and then any catch basins nearby will have inlet protection. There is some stormwater systems that are going to have to be modified for this application. I believe there's one catch basin that's going to be converted to a curbless catch basin, and then there's another catch basin that's to be converted to a manhole. Do that, but we anticipate actually that most of the drainage infrastructure will be left in place. At this time, we're thinking that these would be almost like a slab construction without a footing. I think they call them a haunch slab, where they would do that. So we were able to span over the existing drainage. The basin towards, or the garage towards the basin is located in an area not to impact. We had a vortechnics, or a water quality chamber, that's located just to the north of that building. So that's why that garage is shoved or shifted slightly to the south. I did go back and take a look at the drainage calculations, and while we are showing a very negligible increase in impervious part of this project, I did go back and look at the calculations, and we had provided actually more water quality volume than what was required by DEP. And also we were showing slight decreases in runoff from the existing to the proposed. So based upon a review of those two elements, it's my opinion that there would be no negative impact on the drainage system, and there was enough buffer built into those drainage calculations to accommodate this small amount of impervious cover. With that, I'd be more than happy to answer any questions, and also as Ben is online also to answer any questions on Metro's behalf. Thank you.
Okay. Bob, you want to roll through everybody? Did I lose Mr. Hannon?
It looks like he may just be on mute.
Yeah, well, he's got to unmute himself. I didn't mute him. Hey, Bob? Okay. Mute. Bob Hannon?
He's not showing, he's muted.
No, I know he's not.
Welcome to Zoom. Enter your meeting ID.
All right. You know what? I'll roll through everybody and we'll grab up with Mr. Hannon. Rich Berlandi, do you have any questions?
No, I don't.
Okay. Dave Fox, any questions?
Yeah, just a minor one. As you point out, there's very little increase of impervious surface. I was just curious on the roof runoff from the garage that we are looking at in our jurisdiction. The roof is sloped towards the back of the garage, so it would be directly towards the stormwater basin. I was wondering if that is going to be guttered, or is it just going to come right off the roof? And when it drops on the ground, is there a chance for erosion or something? Because it's really close to the top of the slope down into the basin?
Yeah, it's Tom Daly. Ben, do you know, are they going to be guttered or just pitched off the back?
I believe that the intention is to pitch them off the back.
Okay. So based upon that, I have been out there many times. That slope, and the most critical one is, if we're going to talk about the detention, that slope is heavily vegetated. And it's a small amount of roof, and at least from an engineering standpoint, we tend to think that roof water is generally clean water. So it's a good question, but I do believe that that area is very well stabilized, and there will not be an erosion issue there.
Okay, yeah, I was more concerned about erosion than water quality.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, worst case is if when we're out there, we're building it. I've seen before you do a little like a gravel drip edge where it falls off that roof. We just put a little broken stone so it doesn't splash against the garage. So that might be a detail that we may want to consider, just because you don't want to, everything splashing up on the garage and then eroding down. So maybe that's a detail we should consider.
Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. We had a garage next to a brook last meeting, and that was also discussed.
Okay. We
That's
would
it
have
for
no
me.
objection to that.
That's it for me. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. Robert Eisner.
Hi, Shannon. Did you see that Chairman Hannon sent a chat saying that he needed to come in on cell phone, so he may be back with us?
Okay, hang on. I didn't see it.
Hi,
Thank you.
Shannon.
Thank you.
There he is.
Thanks, Robert.
Thanks,
I got
Robert.
Too many things that I've gotta, I can't
Yep.
have it all up on my screen, otherwise I can't see the plan, so thank you. All right, nonetheless, Mr. Ives, thank you, and you are up for any questions.
No questions. The only comments I have are it seems to be still reasonably spaced from the wetlands. As Tom Daly said, there's a 100-foot buffer, and when we get around to this part of the discussion, I would be in favor of doing a site walk, but no questions at this time. Thank you.
Hey, Mark did not check in, did he?
I can see him, so he came on after we did roll call.
Okay.
Yeah, he's
Mark's
showing-
up.
Mark Simpson? I can see him logged in, but I'm not hearing him. Mark, are you there?
Looks like he's muted.
Can you hear me now?
There we go.
All right. Somebody sent me a message to unmute me. David asked my question, so I have none.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right, Ned?
Yeah, I noticed this dormer on the garage. Is there some kind of room above that, or
No, that would just be decorative.
is this decorative? Okay. And, the foundations are deeper around the perimeter, but then you have this, a hawn slab. Is that,
Yeah, the architecturals are showing a piers for the foundation. I believe we're actually going to go in as Tom was describing a slab on grade, particularly to avoid any conflict with the existing storm line that exists on the not for the in the area that we're discussing tonight, but over closer to the hotel, there is a conflict with an existing storm line that the slab on grade construction would be ideal. So there would be no.
Yeah, there's storm lines here too.
Oh, there is,
So
okay.
it's both.
So both, yeah, and for each of these four, we're intending to do just a thicker than normal slab with no foundation.
okay. Yeah, I was concerned that you might get cracking and the 4 inches starts to come down if you don't have good support under there, and then it gets cracking, then anything that leaks out of the cars can get into the groundwater. But you're not cleaning, or you're gonna go back to a regular slab?
Yes.
Okay. All right, that's my only question. Thank you.
Okay. Jay?
I don't have any questions. I'm always interested to see things. So, I mean, when we get to that point, if there's other folks interested in a site walk, I would support that. I'm not sure I'll actually get to go because I'm still hesitant to do public visits of any kind, but it sounds like a good idea. That's my 2 cents.
Okay. Guy?
The only thing I was going to ask is, are they doing anything to the floor to keep it from having penetration with oils and what have you?
I think the intent is it to be no different than your garage floor. It would be just a traditional concrete floor. I don't know if a sealant would be put on there, but at this time we're not calling it for any type of like epoxy coating or anything like that.
Well, I'm just curious as to what's going to be in there besides a car. if you're gonna store gasoline in there, or oil or
No,
whatever.
so we are, there are lease agreements for these garages, and currently, it does not, in reviewing that agreement, it does not prohibit any sort of hazardous material storage in there, but that's certainly something that would be agreeable to add to our garage agreements. I mean, our intention is that what would be stored in these units would be automobiles and any personal property that the tenants have that they want additional protection for, additional storage space for. But any sort of hazardous, we'd happy to carve that out and exclude from ability to store in these locations.
That's all I have, thanks.
Okay, this is Bob Hannon. I've got a couple of questions. Where's the water going to go from the roof?
It will pitch, the roofs will pitch away from the parking area, and it will just sheet flow off the parking lot, off the garage. And based upon an earlier commissioner's comment, we anticipate that we'll probably be doing a gravel drip edge at the base of the garage, where it'll just it'll infiltrate or into the lawn behind the buildings.
Okay, thank you, because I think that's when my phone died and I had to call in on myself.
Yeah. Yep.
Another question is, I would prefer to see the use of a silt sock instead of a filter fence. And my last comment is, I kind of go along with Guy. I would like to see, because this garage is so close to the basin, that there be some type of an epoxy coating on the floor for that one. I'm not as concerned with the others, but because this is so close to the basin, I just don't think it's worth taking the gamble there. And I believe I also would like to go out and take a quick look at it at the site. But that's all I have.
We have no objection to the changing of a sediment filter fence to a straw wattle or a silt sock or something like that. That's not a problem.
That's fine.
Yep,
yeah.
That's not a problem.
Anybody else have any other comments, questions?
I would agree with you. I think putting a penetrating sealer on the concrete and on that one would be a good idea.
Okay, so if there aren't any other questions, then I guess I'd be looking to get a motion to accept the application.
Motion to accept.
That was Robert?
Yep, Robert Eisner.
Okay. Yep. Okay, so I have a motion to accept the application. Any questions, comments? Hearing none, those in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? Okay, so that first one's done. Do we need to do a motion for a site walk? I mean, I think that the
No, we
general
just
feeling
need
is we probably do one.
Yeah, it sounds like there's enough members that are interested in doing one that we can go ahead and do that. Daylight is working in our favor, so we can do it in an evening.
Okay.
So it's a relatively open area, but it's probably beneficial if we do it, all at once, or it's open and wide enough that we could do it all at once without being on top of one another.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
we could do
So if you want to go ahead and coordinate that.
So in general, does next Wednesday evening at 5 or 6 p.m. work for everybody?
Yeah, that works.
I believe
Yes.
so. About right.
Okay.
Would be okay for me.
All right. We'll say,
Good for Mark.
thank you. We'll say next Wednesday evening, and we'll say 5:30. This way we can maybe in and out and get people home for dinner.
Okay, and
Okay.
then we've done this on other applications. Do you want to hold off on a determination of significance until actually seeing the site?
Yes, that would be my preference.
Okay. All right. I mean, I just think we've been doing that lately, so I think it's a good practice to continue.
Okay. So that's it. Is there anything, it sounds like any question regarding the roof was answered satisfactorily. So other than doing the site walk, are there any concerns or additional information you need from the applicant for the next meeting on July 1st?
I don't.
Okay, I'm not hearing any. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Shannon, this is Robert Eisner. Are you going to have the corners of the garage staked prior to next Wednesday?
We'll be able, it's not necessary to stake it, Robert. There's existing parking there, so it's taking
Okay.
up so we'll.
Okay, that's fine.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okey doke. All right, Ben and Tom, thank you. We are all set, and we'll do the site walk next Wednesday, and then you'll be up again on July 1st for the next meeting.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right.
Now comes the fun one.
Yes.
Okay, show cause hearing 1179 Farmington Avenue. The cease and desist for conduct of a regulated activity without a permit. And I'm curious as to what you actually saw out there today, Shannon.
Okay, well, we've got Attorney Galsky on the phone as well. So, Bill, are you okay if I go ahead? I've got photos of each of the trenches that I was going to run through. Is that fine with you?
Sure.
Okie doke. So, trench one, so these were all taken adjacent to the wetland area as we moved in towards and headed, I gotta get my bearings right here, east towards where the stockpiled, all the piles of material were. This is the area that was still flat. So George started and did a series of trenches, and he started where he knew there was no wetland in the vegetation area, and he did his first trench, and then he systematically moved east about every 50 to 70 feet. So this is the first trench, and while we were seeing what appears a very sandy top, it's actually a topsoil horizon of material, and he found no wetland in this first trench. And you can see the bucket edge, you can see so I'm looking down into the trench. This is the bottom of the trench, this is the soil horizon, and then the vegetation to the left, and that's where all the vegetation was. And we started to, as we start to work east, it gets more wet. So this was trench one and no wetland. This trench two, you can see there's trench one there, right up above at the top of the photo. This is trench two that we're looking at, and we're just starting. So there's this area here, you can see the roots popping, and there was enough of a soil layer there in indications that he was able to flag. So there's the wetland flag that was flagged for trench two, and this other marker that you're seeing is a reference marker that he's using for elevation to measure the depth of the fill material over the native wetland material, so that we can get an elevation, and pretty much it's holding in a consistent elevation across. I have multiple pictures of each trench that we can go through, but I've kind of opened these up to the ones that are most meaningful, and we can pop around. Obviously, George is going to be doing a full report as well, and can discuss this on a more technical level than I can. This is trench 3. This one we had to pull back. I want to say he pulled this back 40 or 50 feet from the edge of the wetland. So my back is to the wetland. This is George in the trench. This is all the fill layer here. And we ended up, this one I didn't grab the photo that has the flag in it, but we ended up, the flag is located somewhere in this area, about 25 to 30 feet off the vegetated strip that was to my back.
Shannon, when you say the flag, what specific kind of flag?
A wetland flag.
Okay.
Yeah, no, wetland flag. So at that point, so trench 1 had no wetlands. Trench 2, the wetland was delineated maybe 10 feet off of the vegetation. Trench 3 and 4, wetlands were found about roughly 30 feet off the existing vegetation line. Trench 5, 6, and 7, it moved back in to maybe 15 feet off the existing vegetation line. And so we got 7 trenches done today. Wetlands were found in 6 of the 7 trenches. And the surveyor is going to be out tomorrow morning and start to pick up. So he's going to pick up the wetland flags and he's going to pick up elevation markers at George's direction. He's also going to pick up the both ends of the trench, and then George has additional investigations that he's going to continue to do. But as far as the area where he could trench, this pretty much took care of it, because by the time we got to the trench 7, we were then in the area where all the material is in the piles and it hasn't been rolled yet, and we really can't get an excavator back there in a logical manner. So this is a view of trench 4 in the flag. At this point, the sun's changed, so it's a little difficult to see all the soil layers. This is the same trench. You can see it. You don't have the flag, but it's just 180 degrees, and this is the side that's exposed to the sun. And that layer was popping in right around in this area here. And it's a very dense, compacted material, and then that wetland layer is sitting on top, and then you've got all the fill material that was placed on top.
So I have a question. So on the process, during the digging, so did you dig, was it the point to dig down until you hit wetland, or you
Nope.
just kept going and then?
So he dug down at George's direction. As you could see, he was quite, because George is taller than I am, and the trench is way above George's head. So he went down 8 feet or so George could see. And then George had his spade, and he was, so obviously the excavator is smoothing out the sides of the trench. So George is using his spade, and he had his auger. He was hand working each of these trenches to get a clean look at all of the soil layers, and he was peeling it. And so as long as George, on this one, and this is the one that this was trench 3, so George had him originally stop in line with all the other trenches, and he's cleaning off the soil layers and being able to discern each of the layers. And he said, yeah, all right, it's still continuing, so you got to pull the trench back another 20 feet for me. And then he did the same thing, and I think he had him pull this trench back twice, 20 feet each time, so that he could figure out and make sure that of what he was seeing, because obviously it's a very difficult to understand. But with this wide open, he was able to walk the trench. And again, using his shovel, he's peeling back the layers so that he's seeing the native stack of the soil. And he just kept progressing it back until he said, okay, we're not in wetland soil anymore, and then tinkered with what he was seeing in the soil layers to make the determination as to where that wetland mark needed to be.
All right, I understand.
Okay? All right.
Thank you.
Yep. All right, that was 5. We actually had water in the bottom, seeping in. So, and the wetland is pretty much right in this area. Sorry, 6 is here, and you can see, again, you can start to see soil. This one, the excavator had to start benching it back because that top layer kept giving way on us. So he had to bench this back. So you're seeing this benched back, and then this is the stable layer, and then this is where George was starting to pull some of the material away and discern the individual soil layers and make a determination for the wetland. Again, this is the wetland flag, and that's the one that's used for elevation tracking. And the final trench is 7, and you can see in the background, we're now where the piles are. So this is all the piled material, and that pond area that it had a number of tadpoles in it at that far eastern edge, about as far as we had walked. You'll recall we didn't walk and traverse through all the piles of material. And this is the similar look to this being benched back. And then this kind of gives you an overview. I'm gonna come up. So we went, trench 7 is in line with where this embankment was, where all the birds, all the swallows are coming in and out, the bank swallows. And this just gives you an idea. So these 2 trenches that are all the way, that are back the furthest, this is trench 3 and 4. 1 and 2 are beyond, further beyond the scope of the picture. This is 4 and 5 and 6 and 7. So what he was doing is for each trench, there's a pile of material on either side. So the topsoil was being placed on one side, and then the native-ish material was placed on the left side of the trench. So, and that's how they proceeded. So on each trench, there's 2 large piles of material, one for topsoil and one for the underlayers of material. That's the final one, and that gives you, again, that's the piles. So George walked it on Saturday with an ecologist that he works with, and they walked a good bit of this forested area, and he's got to finish then this area and to the west of the pond, and he's going to work through some of that in the next couple of days. So that takes care of the trenches. Again, George he's got all his detailed soils information, and we will be getting a full report on what he found. And then this is the scope of work that he's looking to do. So it's going to be a little more than because he's probably got at least one more day, if not 2 days out there. So I was going to meet up with him. I'm on vacation tomorrow and Friday, but I'm going to meet out with him tomorrow morning for a little bit, just to check in on what he's doing and check in with the surveyor. And then we'll get the information that they have to share with us. Bill, is there anything else? Because I know you were out there at one point looking at Trench 5. Is there anything I left out or you to add?
No, I did ask George, and he did say that all the soil in that area had been filled historically, and there were bricks down very low in the trench, evidence of brick, and he kicked up a piece of asphalt at the bottom of Trench 5 when I was there.
Yep.
But I think that's about it. I didn't have much time to talk with him because he was working.
Okay. So that's kind of where we are at this point. I don't know if, I know George thought I know he had another meeting this evening, so he wasn't sure if he was going to be able to get on. It doesn't look, I'm not seeing him on, so I don't think he was able to jump on. So he knows the time frames, he knows our July meeting dates. And he's hoping to have a report for us he's hoping for July 1st, we'll see. Does anyone have any questions or?
I mean, do we want to start it in order again? I mean, might as well, we've been doing it that way and it works. So Rich?
No, I'm just sitting here waiting with bated breath for the rest of the information.
Okay. Dave?
No questions at this time.
Robert?
No questions. Like Commissioner Berlanti said, I think we just have to get the additional information. I do want to say thanks to the applicant and Attorney Galsky for their cooperation on getting the additional information.
Mark?
Nothing at this time.
Ned?
No questions at this time.
Jay?
Oh, I don't have anything.
Guy? You still there, Guy?
He's there.
No
but he's
questions at this time.
Okay.
There we go.
I mean, the only question I have, Shannon, is sort of what's next on the horizon for work that needs to be done?
So next is surveying. So tomorrow, like I said, there'll be surveyors out to pick up these wetland flags and the elevations so we can start to figure out the depth of material. George and I have taken a couple of measurements. It varies. Obviously, on the end that's near the wetland, it's about 18 inches. Where George is standing right here in this photo, it's about 3 feet, 30 inches to 3 feet of material. So that's going to take place with a survey standpoint. With the he's also then going to do additional investigation to classify the material further east, north of the pond and on the eastern edge of the pond. And he's going to do some more work just immediately between where we trenched and the pond edge in that wooded area. Interestingly, he and I walked a portion of it today, and while it was saturated when we were there, and there was clearly standing water right up to the edge. In fact, we couldn't even, you'll recall, we couldn't stand on the edge without sinking into the soil material. We had to be really cautious about how close we got to that tree line. We could walk right on it today. And we could walk right out into that area. So he's got to that end, it's helpful because he's able to get in with an auger, and he's actually able to traverse the area and get a better understanding on vegetation, habitat, and the soil regime in that area. So he's going to continue. That's why I said he's got at least another day, if not 2 days out there, I would think. And then we'll have his report. The other thing that we're doing kind of in parallel with this and falls, while it is somewhat pertinent to wetlands, it is a little more of a TPZ issue, is the floodplain and trying to get a handle on elevations from a floodplain standpoint. So we're looking at that as well, and we've been pulling out all the FEMA information and parsing that, but that's the other thing we need to do is try to get that information so that we can figure out how much of this was fill and what that native elevation was before this fill material came in. So really it's getting George's report and getting some survey information, and then I guess we've got to take a look to see exactly what he found in his report with respect to wetland areas. He did say the pocket wetlands that were south of Central Way that were delineated when the church was built. And it's all the piles of material. He said really at this particular point it's looking for a needle in a haystack, and what he's thinking is perhaps a better approach is simply use that mapping, figured out the combined area, and do an equivalent or a 2-to-1 restoration. He said trying to actually find those pockets at this particular point in time is probably not overly advantageous. Obviously, if the commission thinks differently, then we should let them know so that they can embark on that. But that was his professional opinion regarding that. He was not intending to try to find those isolated wetlands south of Central Way.
Could you tell about how much fill was in some of those areas?
Oh, yeah, so it's about 18-inch depth. It's about 18-inch depth right up adjacent to that tree line, and it's about 3 feet depth here. And it's probably a good 3 feet, 3 to 4 feet for the majority of that distance then, the width. So it obviously it tapers off, it narrowed up as it got closer to the tree line.
And just from looking at the pictures, you don't really get a good perspective as to the depth.
Yeah, well, George is standing here, and he's standing, not kneeling. And he's working at that native layer, and there's a good 3 feet of material, 2 to 3 feet of material over his head.
Okay.
And we measured in a number of locations, and it was consistently coming up anywhere from 27 to 33 inches.
Okay. Thank you.
Excuse me, Statchen, was that the owner's excavator that was doing the digging, or with the soil guy, or?
I believe so. I don't know. I didn't ask.
But it was under the direction of George?
It was, oh yeah, he was proceeding as George directed him to.
Okay.
The entire day. Like I said, I was there. Trench 1 and 2 were finished when I got there. They were just starting 3. So I got to see 1 and 2 and witness the entire trenching of 3, or 90% of it. They had started 4. I had to leave because we've got another violation because apparently 'tis the season. And I was back around 2 o'clock, and they were in the middle of trench 6, and they finished 6 and did 7 while I was there. And it was all, he did as George asked him to do the entire time. And then George was in each trench. So what you're seeing here with George in this particular, I captured it in trench 3, he did this in every single trench.
So going forward, is it realistic to think that George will have all of his material ready by the 1st? Or is that a little too optimistic?
It may be optimistic. We might have some preliminary information. Honestly, I'm not exactly sure how much additional, so the trenching information in the report and then getting the surveyor to plot everything. I sent him the dates. He knows we've got July 1st and July 14th or 15th. And then he knows there's a hiatus in August. But I said, obviously, for consistency, and it's fairly easy to get everyone together on Zoom, so we could certainly touch base at some point in August, maybe the 10th, or early to mid-month, and if need be, and then get back into the regular rotation in September.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions, comments?
No.
Okay.
Hey, Shannon?
Yes.
Yeah, I would just, couple things. I went down to the river and, where the pond is draining, and that was almost, it was negligible.
Okay.
In fact, you could see the pollen silt on the pond right up just about to where it was literally still trickling into the river. But George did mention to me that he thought that the pond was a separate habitat from what I've called the wet meadow, because of the presence of a berm on the west side of that, or the east side of the pond. I don't know if he mentioned that to you.
He did. He also said he'd only walked about 40% of the perimeter, and he needed to walk the rest of the perimeter to make sure that there is not a hydraulic connection between that wet meadow and the pond.
Right, yeah. So he's going to investigate that too.
Correct. So that's part of what he's finishing up in the next couple of days, and he's trying to make that determination because he's basically, if I understand, and I don't want to put words in his mouth, but loosely, my understanding is that if there's no hydraulic connection from the wet meadow to the pond, then without that, he hasn't seen any other evidence of Army Corps jurisdiction. If there is a hydraulic connection, then there perhaps is Army Corps jurisdiction. So that's why he's paying particular attention to it. So, anything else, Bill?
No, I don't think so at this point.
Okay. All righty. So I'll stay in touch, via email as we have. I know George will be out there tomorrow, so I'll pop out, and we'll just continue to stay in touch between now and the July 1st meeting with respect to what can be provided for that meeting.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thanks. Okay.
Planners report.
Yeah, I'm actually gonna sneak something in that's, I got a building permit application for 42 Mile Road, and it is a deck. They are going to put a deck on, and I gotta bring up, here it is. I gotta walk up here. Okay, that one is 42 Mile. So where my mouse is 42 Mile Road. The existing deck, they're gonna turn into a 3-season room, and then they're going to put another deck out here. You can see the water course running through the back of the yard. Everything they're doing is on existing lawn. The only earthwork that's being done are the four to six piers that are going in for the deck. So I wasn't even going to do an agent. So normally I would do an agent upland review for this, but this doesn't even really seem to warrant that. I was thinking it's just permitted as of right, but you folks have to make that determination. I can't.
No,
So
he's not digging down to the footings, is he?
he's just digging, he's got so on the existing deck, he's just enclosing it to make a 3-season here. And then he's building a new exterior deck just off the corner of the existing deck in the existing lawn area. And he's gonna put in it looks like four sonotubes for footing. That's it. So the only earth excavation is the 4 sonotubes. And they're gonna be right in, darn it, I can't read these numbers. That's 40, so it's just gonna be just off the, it's just here, off the existing deck. So it's less excavation than a swimming pool. So I wasn't gonna have them do the agent review, because so if you're agreed that it's permitted as of right, then we can proceed, I can proceed with the building permit.
Do we need a motion or consensus?
It would be, a motion would be great.
Okay, I'll make a motion that it's permitted use.
This is Mark, I'll second it.
Any discussion? I mean, the one thing
just to be on the safe side, because they're taking dirt out to put the sonotubes in, what are they gonna do with the dirt? And because it is pretty close to what appears to be some type of a stream, are they gonna put any erosion control measures in the backyard?
Yeah, we will. We'll have them do all of that. We will probably have him use hay bales or a silt sock because he's gonna make more of a mess trying to get a silt fence in than he would just doing the 4 sonotubes.
Agreed.
So, yeah, so we'll have him, that's an automatic as part of all of our building permits is an erosion control step. And it doesn't get past Bruce or myself until we've vetted it, duked it out, one of us goes and checks it. So it will be installed.
All right, so we have a motion on the floor. Are there any other questions or comments? Hearing none, those in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, abstaining? So be it.
Fabulous. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
Yep, no, thanks, I appreciate it. All right, 69 Forest Hill, Bruce was very helpful. He was out last week for us and also out this week and took photos. So these are photos from last week. They started on Monday. He popped out on Tuesday to check on things. And this is the series of photos. This obviously is at the front of the house. This is the front. The wetland vernal pool is at the back, but we've got photos at the front. And then this is coming around the back area. This is actually to the south of the property. This is the back of the home with the deck, and there's some logs that have started to be stacked off to the side. This chip pile had been there. You can tell that it's not a fresh chip pile that had been there. And so they had started to chop and get things piled up. He had just a couple of fellas there working. And so those were from last week, and then just on Monday, you can see they're starting to get a little more of it cleared out. This area here is all cleared out more than it had been the previous week. And you can see the brush pile. This is a large pile of logs, and then the brush pile. And it's likely that Matt Davison may use some of this is for habitat. It's great habitat material. So some of this will be used, some of it will be hauled off-site for chipping. But they are starting to make progress. I did send an email to the attorney and let him know that I was just going to chat about this from a progress and update standpoint, and he indicated he was going to follow up with me and let me know. I'm just checking emails to see if he's gotten back. Now, he said he's going to contact the surveyor and get his ETA on mapping. Obviously, once they get some of this area cleared out, this general lawn area is where the septic field is, so they've just got to get that delineated as well. So they'll get that hammered out and get it surveyed. So it's just an update to let you know they are starting to proceed and they are following the direction of the commission from the last meeting. So anybody have any questions on that? That's all I've got on this one.
I might be having an old age moment. Can you just remind me what the story is with 69 Forest Hills, if you wouldn't mind? I don't remember what they're doing there.
Was a violation. They cleared trees within 100 feet of the vernal pool is back here in the woods. So there's the vernal pool, and we had Davison Environmental was on at the last meeting and discussed the restoration plan and the discussion of the restoration plan and using some of the logs that have been harvested as part of the restoration plan, but they also need to locate the septic fields so that restoration plantings aren't placed over top of the septic field.
Oh, yeah. Okay, thank you. I remember now. Sorry about that.
No problem.
Shannon, this is Mark. You know, I'm not an expert on salamanders, which seems to be the major little amphibian down there. Everything I see is they love decaying, leafy, moist, stuff. I mean, the wood is going to be great, I guess, eventually it would degrade, but I assume they leave all the leaves into the forest and just let them fall where they lay and make a little nice home for the salamanders?
Correct, but they'll bury under the wood, and
Okay, I know they tunnel.
yeah, they'll burrow under the wood and use that, and it's, obviously quite protective then for them. So they'll use both, and so that's why Matt was suggesting that some of the logs, they just can't be left, like this log here, right, it's hitched up on the stump, and it's not in contact with the ground, so it's not providing benefit to anybody. So they need to get cut into like 3-foot lengths so that they can, one, they can be moved, and two, they can actually lie flat on the ground then. And you're right, they will start to decay. The more they start to decay, the more the salamanders like them. It creates a nice habitat for them.
All right, thank you.
Absolutely. Anything else? Okay. Hearing none, I'm going to keep going because I'm having fun tonight. So we're on to, I got a call today as I was heading out to 1179 Farmington Avenue. I got a call about 19 Canterbury Lane. Interestingly enough, it was from the homeowner. She had hired a contractor to cut trees. This is the story that I got. So she had hired a contractor to cut trees. The contractor was there cutting trees. And apparently, Connecticut Gas stopped the contractor, or stopped and spoke to the contractor and said, hey, you can't be cutting there, there's wetlands. Why Connecticut Gas would do that, I have absolutely no idea. Or who else it possibly could have been, I have absolutely no idea. So the contractor stopped work. The woman called town hall because the homeowner was, concerned. And so I pulled all the paperwork, and yeah, I'm not really sure why she was surprised by this, because in 2005, they were permitted for the expansion to their home into lawn area, and they were required to reflag the wetlands for their lawn. The original wetland line had come pretty much straight through when you look at the original home as-built. And then through the course of time, or at the time the home was constructed, the excavated material was used to the back of the home. So the wetland limit is now really in this configuration, and a conservation easement was put in place, and there's conservation easement markers that are clearly visible. And the trees, so here's, you can see L1, L2, L3, L4, L5, that's the conservation easement. And there's a marker at each of these points. And the trees, there's one or two trees, and low-lying vegetation had been stripped basically in this area. So I explained to her that we will be issuing a notice of violation, and that I suggested she get in touch with a soil scientist, and that we've had, 5 of these in the last year or so, and that I can guarantee with 100% certainty a restoration plan will be required, and be prepared to participate at the July 1st meeting. So we'll time it, the letter will go out next week, so the 10 days will fall for the July 1st meeting for the show cause hearing. I did send her a list of 6 soil scientists that have been in front of us in the last 3 years, just to get her started in the right direction, and was clear that it's not a recommendation, it's just a courtesy so she can have a starting point. And she indicated, she sent an email back to me before the end of the day, indicating she'd spoken with somebody and they were going to be at her property tomorrow, and they should have a plan, or at least be prepared to speak on at the next meeting. So that's coming our way, but you can see there's a little marker, and there's all the wood that's down. So, I explained to her that she needs to leave everything as is until, there's no real erosion concern or a direct, I mean, this is wetland. If you're walking in it, like, it was just caking in the boots. So it's wet, moist soil, but it's not going anywhere. So there's no immediate erosion control concern. So they'll start to put a plan in place, and then we'll chat at the next meeting.
What was the purpose of the work? Was it like trees near a house or?
Well, so trees near the house, she was saying one of the trees was dead. I took a look at the stump, and the stump wasn't fantastic, but it wasn't rotted through either. So, there's no arborist report, there's no nothing. So she was all thrilled. She's like, oh, now there's sun in my backyard. And I'm like, yeah, there is. And you're going to have to replant.
Not for long.
Not for long. So anyhow, that's just it. So, she was, the typical question, well, if I can't cut any trees, is the town taking responsibility for the liability of when a tree falls on my house? And I said, no. I said, if you read your easement agreement, it's specifically in the easement agreement that you simply need to notify us. We'll come out, take a look, and if there are trees that are harmful and are dead, then you're permitted to take them out without completely destroying all the understory plantings and remove them and go on, replant if necessary. But yeah, no, you can limb them up and you can remove them if they are dead or dying. But when I was there, everything was fully leafed out at the top, all around. All these trees that you can see, everything was fully leafed. I did not see anything that was not leafed out. So
Shannon, we saw one post with a medallion on it. How many are there on this property?
There's one there. There's one here. I saw 4, and I didn't walk the whole property. There's one in the corner, there's one here, and then there's one up around the corner. So
well, I can see with all that thick
vegetation,
I can see it.
Excuse me?
I said with all that thick vegetation, I can see how she would have missed all those posts.
I know there's a little sarcasm there. They were very evident. They were incredibly evident. So that'll be coming in July, along with everything else for tracking. So.
But a quick question for you, Shannon. When you said they came in back in what was it, like 2005? Was it the same property owner?
Yes. Yeah,
Okay,
they signed, so it's their signature on the easement document that's recorded in the land records.
Okay.
Yep. Okay, so that's it. I don't have, and I was hoping to get to 275 Talcott Notch and 41 Woodruff. I did not, so I haven't, I do that in the next week or two, get out, take some photos and get a status. And then we can start to clear some of that off of our list and tracking. So.
I think you should go on vacation, Shannon, and don't worry about it until you get back.
Yeah, after you go to 11.
Is this how you spend your vacation week, Mark? This is my vacation week.
You can't go
make a motion.
You go to 11.
Hey, Shannon, the one question I have on some of these projects is you may need to bring us back up to speed to see where we are with any penalties on any of these projects.
Yeah, so 275 and 41 Woodruff, that's exactly where we are, Bob, is, so I have invoices from both homeowners for all their fees they've they've put in for the work, and so I wanted to get to the site, make sure everything still looks healthy and has leafed out for the spring, and then I've got to compile the numbers, and that's basically where, and so both homeowners, in both cases, everybody's completed their restoration plan. We're about a year into planting, I believe. So it was just taking a look and running through the numbers to see where we landed on the fees that they had to pay to enact their restoration.
Okay.
Bob, I have a question. Shannon, do we know who the arborist, the tree company was that did the cutting at Canterbury Lane?
No, but I think that would be a fabulous question.
Yeah, and also a copy of the contract, because a lot of times the tree companies, they know, and they write the contracts a lot of times that say it's up to the homeowner to secure all local approvals. But it would be, I mean, I think in addition to the property owner, we can also look at the tree companies, because they're as much at fault in these situations as anyone else.
Yeah. The tree company at least know what those markers mean.
Yeah, well, she indicated that it was, you know, again, one of these, just a fellow she found on the internet kind of thing. I don't know that it's a company per se, but yeah, I'm to the point where I'm going to send them all a letter to say, if you're doing work in Farmington, you please call me. Just like, we could tell them when, like, a less than 5-minute phone call. So, but yeah, I'll see if I can get a copy of the contract.
And as you said, if it was just someone they picked up out of the local Yankee Flyer, then they may not be insured. They may not be licensed, they may not be insured, they may not do contracts. It's worth asking.
Yeah. It absolutely is. Okay, so that's it for my planner's report.
Okay. Next is approval of the minutes of June 3rd, 2020. Can I get a motion to approve?
This is Robert, so moved.
Second?
This is Jay, second.
Okay. Any discussion, corrections, questions? If not, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining? So be it. So we'll close wetlands at 8:07 and start conservation. And I did not print off the I did not print it off. So I don't have the conservation agenda in front of me, but I can't think there's much on it.
No, there isn't. So it was land acquisition, but they canceled their June meeting. I believe they plan on meeting in July. And what I will share is this. I had forwarded the link from Darcy Winther at DEEP. The municipal training is available now online. So this was included in everyone's package that I sent out last Friday. So the email is included. So this is particularly pertinent for any of the newer members that have not received and gone through the training. So it's an online course. I did it when I first started with the town. It's not overly onerous. You can make it as interesting and detailed as you want, because there's links to take you to other sites for additional information and more in-depth information. But once you register for it, you have 60 days to complete the course. And you can start and stop the training. So typical to any other online course, you can do a half hour today, do 2 hours tomorrow, do it all in one sitting, kind of however you want to do it, as long as you complete it within 60 days from the time you first log in. It's all online. There's no other information is needed. You can just start at your convenience. When you finish, you do get a certificate of completion. So it would be very helpful for me if when you do finish, you just forward off a copy via email of your certificate of completion so that we have it for the file. Ideally, and technically by statute, every commissioner is supposed to take this course, I believe, within the first year or 2 years of them being appointed to the commission. So ideally, it is something that you kind of prioritize with everything else in life. So, but it's kind of interesting, and it does help answer some of those questions about vernal pools and how wetlands are determined and why we regulate the activities in the wetlands and why we're protecting them. So
I'm going to go out on a limb and say that that's probably a good idea for me to do that. Where is that link? Was that link something that you provided for us to be able to access? I don't remember what you said at the beginning.
Yep, it's in, so it was, as with all the attachments that I sent on Friday, was an email, was one of the attachments. And the email is the email for, it's this email that you're looking at. If you can't find it, or I can just forward Darcy's email again to everybody, so it's kind of at the top of in your inbox. But it was in the agenda review and package of information that was emailed out on Friday.
Okay, I'll look for it, and I should do that. I think that would be a great idea for me. So thank you for that. Yeah.
Yep. Should be for any of the commission members, so.
I have a quick town question. So has Mark DeVoe departed the town of Farmington? Has his resignation taken effect yet?
So his resignation was accepted, and his last day is June 30th.
Okay. So are you acting town planner?
Not right now, because it's not July 1st.
Okay. Well, that's what I kind of meant. Okay. I mean, that makes sense. I just was curious. I happened to see Mark the other day when the Human Relations Commission, we actually met in the building. There was only 3 of us, so it was okay. And, I just thanked him because I interacted with him on some other things when he was, having to do with the Village Center Committee. So that was really said to him, but whatever. Oh, just curious. Thank you.
Yeah, no, he's here through the end of the month.
Okay, that makes sense.
And no other decisions have been made. So that's it.
Yeah, whatever.
Yep. But in the interim, it'll be Bruce, Sandy, and I holding down the fort in the development wing. So just like it was at the beginning of 2019, from January to June, it'll be similar. So we will do what we can to continue to get everyone information in a timely fashion. Obviously, if you see something that's concerning, let us know, and we will try and get it to the top of the list.
Yep.
But the bright side is you guys do all have all that much more experience.
Thank you, Mr. Hannon.
Like I said before, if there's anything I can do to help, I'd be happy to. So just don't hesitate to ask.
No, I will. Thank you. Well, certainly with 1179, that's been helpful. So.
Anything on planners report, or was that it?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, so it's just approval of the minutes for the June 3rd meeting?
Yes.
Can I get a motion, please?
This is Robert. Move to approve.
This is Mark. Mark, second.
Okay. Have a motion on the floor to approve the minutes. Any questions, comments, corrections? Hearing none. Those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? So be it. And I guess at 8:14 we can close.
All right.
Great.
Okay. Thanks, everyone. I appreciate everyone jumping on the call.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Enjoy your time off,
Okay.
Shannon.
Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of your vacation. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Stay safe.
Good night.
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 You can take some time to yourself, right?